Center for Spiritual Living Fullerton. We are a loving spiritual community, empowering all to live healthy and successful lives through practicing the principles of science of mind. Well done. Good morning and God morning. I'm Beverley Brezden, and it is my pleasure to serve as practitioner for this morning's service in our beautiful Fullerton Sanctuary. The announcements for today: in blessings aplenty for in 2020. We welcome everyone back, and it's so good to be together again. Today, Board of Trustees meeting is after the service, and Tomoko is inviting us to send in a story of what we have learned or experienced at this time of the COVID-19 shutdown, 2019 shutdown. If you have any insights or aha moments, please share them with us. Next Sunday, it's going to be Certificate Sunday, and all the students who have taken classes during 2019 and 2020 will be honored. And we're also officially welcoming Eva Costello, RScP, as she has completed her time of training, her testing, and she is now ours in service to share her love and her talents. It is so good to see some more of you face to face and smiling behind your masks. I love how your eyes sparkle when we do our ritual COVID happy greetings. Of comfort and joy. Members at home, we are so happy that you are joining us online when you can. Wish you were here with us. Keep safe, keep well. We love you. And now, I invite you to gently close your eyes and go within to that sanctuary within where lies the presence of God and our soul. God is the infinite power and intelligence that binds us all together in inseparable bonds of love, joy, peace, order, freedom, beauty, and harmony. Hallelujah for the wonder. Hallelujah for the mystery. Hallelujah for this inclusive spiritual community where together we may learn and grow in mind, body, spirit, and soul. A quote from Pope Francis that was sent to me from our own Karen Ferris. Rivers do not drink their own water. Trees do not eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine on itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrances for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature, as well as spiritual law. We are all born to help each other, no matter how difficult it is. Life is so good when you are happy, but even much better when others are happy because of you. Thank you for being you. And it is with a grateful heart that we now honor and bless the congregants who have given so generously of their time, talent, and their treasure to make this morning's service a joyful celebration of oneness, wisdom and love, and service to each other and our world. We bless Reverend Dr. Bill and his talk titled Separating the Wheat from the Chaff, knowing that it will carry us deeper into the spiritual harvest, fall harvest theme for this month, and maybe with some chuckles and grins. We bless Tommy Constantino for his music, his singing, and the video graphics that fill our screen with scenes that always perfectly match the theme of the service. It is always a surprise and quite a delight. We bless Tomoko Rosas for her loving presence as Director of Operations for our center, and for being our videographer with Tommy as lead. We bless the board for their collaborative, loving presence and wise decisions, the practitioners for their healing and uplifting prayers, and Sally Rogers for our after-service individually wrapped treats. And so it is.
I need to be still, let God love me. I need to be still, let God love me. When this old world starts to push and shove me, I need to be still. Let God love me.
Today, our reading is from A Heart of Wisdom by Andrew Harvey, in the book One Heart, edited by Bonnie Louise Kugler, with slight revision by me. It's spoken in the words of Andrew Harvey, who was the interviewer. I had the joy of interviewing the Dalai Lama in Oslo, Norway, in 1989, the day before he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Just before our time was up, I asked him, "What is wisdom?" He laughed. "We have only 5 minutes left and you ask me this?" Then he leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, seemed to concentrate his whole being, and began. In humble terms, I would say that wisdom has 4 essential faces for me. One face, and this face is very important, is discernment. Without this, the real and unreal, true or false, helpful or hurtful, creative or destructive, are lost. Discernment is usually achieved not merely by meditation, but through the difficulties of experience. The second face that wisdom wears for me is that of patience, and to be wise without bitterness or regret. Often in this life you must wait a long time for what you pray for to happen. He's speaking from his own experience, of course. And what for you is the third face? To avoid anything that causes pain or difficulty to others, because inevitably, by the law of karma, it will rebound and you will suffer. And the fourth? Here he leaned forward and grabbed both of my hands in his. "To be joyful," he laughed again with his unmistakable laugh. To always try to give and receive joy in whatever circumstances you find yourself. A truly wise person has an inner joy that is like a fire. It warms the world. Gazing deep into his tender and brilliant eyes, I knew what he meant. Namaste.
There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden grace flows. There is a garden where everything grows, a beautiful garden where love is sown. And in this place of light and love, you can have anything you're dreaming of. There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden. That garden is you. Such a beautiful garden. That garden is you. A beautiful garden. That garden is you.
Kino, beautiful song, thank you. So good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I am Reverend Bill Salisbury. My absolute pleasure to be here today. Continuing with our monthly theme, the spiritual fall harvest. Today we're talking about separating the wheat from the chaff. We've all heard that expression. But I wonder what it means, really. Because, you know, most of us, generally speaking, we're not farmers. And that is kind of an old-fashioned farmer's thing, where they used to have this pitchfork-looking thing that they'd throw up the wheat in the air. And the wind would separate the chaff, the husk, the stuff that surrounded the seed that was the best part of the grain, and blow it off, and the real stuff would fall to the floor, and then they'd sweep it up and they'd use it. Well, we don't do that, most of us. But I think the reason that we've co-opted this saying to use in our general lives is because it's a perfect analogy, isn't it? It's about those things that we want to separate that are good in our lives. And I'm not going to use the word bad, good versus bad, because, you know, we have this habit of getting into this solid black and white duality, this switch on, switch off thing. And I don't think life is like that at all. So I'm going to say we want to separate out what's good for us as opposed to what's not so good for us. Remembering this, there's nothing wasted in the divine economy. So if we say something is not good, I'm sorry, who do we blame that on? So everything has its purpose. It's just that when its purpose is finished, completed, done, that's when we can have it separated out from what's left behind. So that which is no longer serving can be set aside for that which is serving, or that which has been placed in service because of that which is no longer in service to us. And make no mistake about it, if we're going to separate the wheat from the chaff, we're talking about doing this spiritually. Spiritually. There's no physical, no earthly, no worldly, no human separating the wheat from the chaff without first doing it spiritually. Because if we don't do it within, it's not going to happen without. Everything as has ever come to be was first an idea in mind. An idea in the mind of God that brought about all of this and all of us, and then ideas in our minds which are some part of that mind of God. and have been given birth to all the things that we see and we do, and the events that happen to us. So when we separate out what's best for us and what's not, if we don't do it spiritually first, there's no point in continuing. There just isn't. I don't believe that we were put here to gather and collect and hoard and race. I mean, come on. We are here, each of us, because God became us, to come in and express as us, to make this whole world make some sense. And I don't think that happened because God wanted to come down to earth and have a race against death. It just wouldn't make any sense to me. And yet, don't we do that sometimes? Don't we act as if we've got to run helter-skelter, 90 miles an hour, along this thing that we call life, getting up in the morning, going out and working, coming back at the end of the day exhausted and flopping, and getting up at tomorrow and doing it all over again. And then after 5 days of this, we have what we term a weekend, and then we just go party and play so hard that that's all we can do to get up on Monday and start this whole thing over again. I don't think that's life. And I don't think it needs to be. And I think somewhere along the line, we have failed to separate out these things that are so totally, completely unimportant to our development, our growth, our reunion with the reality, capital R, that is the divine, that is spirit, that is God, that is light, that's life that's calling to us. Life did not create us to just run amok with no purpose and to be constantly doing and redoing the exact same things until some years later we just die and get on to the next experience and hope we've learned a lesson from this one and not do the same thing over again. We're not human doings, right? We're human beings. We're supposed to be, not to do. And if we're going to do, let's do things that advance this humanness that we have back to that union. We say union with the divine, and it really is reunion. And it's not even reunion because we're never not unioned. It's re-awareness of our union with it. You know, the master teacher Jesus said something to the effect of, "Come with me. My yoke is easy and my burden is light." Yoke, his yoke, from the same root word as yoga. So, which means union. Yoga is simply union with spirit. So what he's saying is, come with me, come my way. I know how to do this. I've been in touch, and he called it with the Father within, but I know how this world works. I know how to be one with the divine and how to have that manifest in my life and make me able to do all sorts of wondrous things. We call them miracles. He didn't call them miracles. He called them things I should do. Here's my to-do list. My honey-do list. Walk on water, fishes and loaves, raise the dead. And how could he do that without being in that complete union? And please remember, he said to us, these things and more you're gonna do. Problem is, we don't do that because it's easy to say, well, gee, Bill, why don't we do that then? Let's go out and have a raising the dead party. Let's just wave our magic wand and get rid of this COVID thing. The reason we don't do that is we have forgotten that that is our right. That is our purpose. That is our dharma. That is our duty. And we've let it go because we haven't bothered separating out all those important things from all the unimportant things that take up so much of our time and our energy. in our thought processes. Jesus could raise the dead. You know why Jesus could raise the dead? Because he didn't believe in death. He just didn't believe in death. You know, he brought us those 2 commandments. Love the Lord God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And he brought us 2 truths also. One, there is no death. Didn't he prove that? He raised Lazarus. Raised himself. We say ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I mean, if you've never been to a memorial service, I'm sorry, spoiler alert, we're going to say ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And yes, that is true, dust to dust. This physical body that we inhabit is made of physical material. And I think we've discussed, somebody said that if you got rid of all the air and all the water inside us, there's something like an ounce or something of real material that would be left over. And that does return to dust, because that's what it is. We are that part of the material world that we are. But just like the dust returns to dust, where's the spirit going? Because we're dust that's invigorated and enlivened and informed and driven and filled with life. Life and spirit. Where does that go? He showed us that too. Spirit is never going to die. It was unborn. It'll never die. It goes on and on and on forever. You know, Ernest Holmes said that one of the 10 core concepts of our science of mind is that we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. And sometimes I think that it's great to recite these things, and we say, you know, these cute little catchphrases like life everlasting, without really stopping to think that, you know what that means? That means life is everlasting. It's not a cute thing to say in church on Sunday. We have to embody that. We have to understand that. We have to know that when this course of action, if you will, is over for us, and we lay these tired bodies aside because they're no longer serving, they have become chaff, leaving behind the wheat, which is the Spirit, which is us, which is that God that is within us, that God that has become us to walk this planet. It's not going to die. The dust goes back to dust. The spirit goes back to spirit. That's the yoga. That's the reunification. You know, Bill Hornaday, the Reverend Dr. William Hornaday from the Founders Church many years ago, the church in LA that Ernest Holmes turned over to him, told this story about his 6-year-old son and his neighbor who had grown a sunflower plant. Now, this is going to be impossible for kids of today to understand. It's even difficult for some of us to understand and remember. He told this story back in, I don't know, the mid-50s. In those days, we didn't have fences separating our yards. Some of you I know can remember that. We didn't have them. I remember the scandal in our neighborhood when somebody moved in and put a fence around their yard. I mean, yards came off the back of everybody's houses, but they were the playgrounds for all the kids in the neighborhood. We ran screaming and shooting and firing and yelling through them, and then all at once, somebody put up a fence. And we're all going kind of like, what the hell is that? It's not like I had a dog. They didn't put up a fence to keep their dog in, they put up a fence to keep their neighbors out, to keep the neighbors' kids out. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Just a sad memory. So they didn't have fences, And the little 6-year-old boy discovers the sunflower growing in his neighbor's yard. And he says, wow, yeah, I really like that sunflower. Daddy, can I have it? At which time, teachable moment, the Reverend Hornaday has to explain to his little 6-year-old son that that's not how it works. And it's not yours, it's not ours, it belongs to Mr. So-and-so. And he said, well, can I just go ask him? 6-year-old kids are, they don't understand the nuances of protocol. Okay, so it belongs to him, can I just go ask him if I can have it if you can't give it to me? He said, well, okay, let's go ask him. And they knock on the door and the guy says, oh, yeah, he says, you can have it. He says, if you pick it, it's gonna die. And Bill Hornaday says, yeah, he says, you don't want it to die, do you? He says, no. He says, the neighbor says, well, then you take care of it. It'll be yours. Just don't move it so it'll die. So the little guy gets out his toy rake, shoveling his little water can, and he just tends that thing, and pretty soon it's just as big and beautiful as it's ever gonna get. And all the neighborhood kids are over there, like, I don't know, like doctors around a sick bed, looking at this thing and just enjoying it. And then one day, Reverend Bill comes home and there's his little son standing in the driveway, sobbing and moaning, and I mean just almost hysterical because the sunflowers died. Well, so being the good reverend that he was, he explains to the son what's up with that, what's going on with that. Unfortunately, just like 6-year-olds don't understand the nuances and the protocols of neighborly things, they don't really understand much about that either, because the question keeps coming back, why? So he walks him over to the sunflower and he says, look, he says, and he pulls a seed out and he says, your sunflower hasn't died. Just that this version of it has gone away. This version of it is no longer serviceable. But it's still right here in this seed. And we know that. We know the pattern of the sunflower is in this seed. Just like we know that the pattern of the whole giant oak tree, branches, leaves, trunk, everything, is embodied in that acorn. Now, we don't know how that works. We think we do, and some people will say, but when you really get down to the bottom line, there's no scientist, no botanist, no philosopher, no religious leader, no politician, no psychologist who can tell you why that happens. Nobody can explain, well, they can tell you why. Nobody can explain the actual how it happens. Nobody can explain how life gets put into something. Except us. We can explain that. We know life gets put into something because life comes with everything. Because everything is made of the very substance of God, which is life. Which is eternal life. Infinite, everlasting life. And that's what we're talking about here. It doesn't get put in. It just is. It's never been not in. It's never been out. God cannot not be. But God has become us. Do we get that? We are here because we are some part of God. If God cannot not be, how could we not be? We're like that sunflower. We might change the iteration. We might change this instantiation that we are, but we are never changing that I am that is at back of this. We've learned a long time ago that this body is not who we are. And what we say and what we do are just things that the intellect has us say and do. That's our humanness acting. But how often do you get this this little voice. You know, last week I mentioned my inner chicken. And I know you laugh, but I'll bet you some of you have an inner chicken every once in a while that used to pop up. But that inner voice that we have, I mean, aren't you sometimes doing something? Sometimes you're wondering about a course of action, but other times you're just plain heading for it, and all at once, there's this giant stop sign that comes up. It's like some old cowboy out of the 40s or 50s just lassoed you and brought you to a dead halt. And you don't know why. But you do what it tells you to do. Or conversely, you don't do what it tells you to don't do. And you come to find out that that moment was a life-changing event in some direction or other. It was a life changer. You were about to do something or not do something that, it turns out, in retrospect, was a very important decision that you didn't even know you had to make. And you didn't make. It was made for you. It was made by that inner witness. We call it intuition. What is intuition? Except life talking to us, through us. God talking to us. That's what intuition is. And intuition is what helps us separate what's good for us as opposed to what is no longer serving. How did I ever get off on that? I was talking about Jesus and the two facts that he gave us. And the one was that there is no such thing as death. And the other thing is, spiritually, just in the same manner that he rolled that huge stone away from the front of the tomb, within which his physical body was sequestered, shall we say, confined, imprisoned, maybe, it didn't matter, he was dead anyway, right? And then they show up, and that big, impossible to move stone is gone, and so is he, spiritually and physically. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. And guess what? Nobody else that tells us what happened was there either. Okay, so like Plato says, it's all a likely story, and you know what? My story is as good as anybody's. So I don't know what happened, but what it did show us, it showed us that not only is there no such thing as death, but we can move that stone spiritually that's covering the tomb of fear that we live in, or covering the tomb of inadequacy that we live in, or not enoughness, or whatever it is that we want to shake. We can't do it physically. We can't do it intellectually. You ever tried to sit down and just say to yourself, something, anything, either you can or you can't, and just say it over and over and over and over? Well, if you can do nothing else, that's going to help you somewhat. But it's not going to be an earth changer, an earth shaker, or a world mover. Not like that spiritual power that we have when we say, you know what? I'm not this. I'm not this limited, finite thing that's suffering under some burden. I'm changing yokes. I'm putting on the yoke of spirit because it's light, but it works so well. And it will help me determine what is keepable, if you will, and what I can do without. I can't do that. In my mind, in my intellect, I can't do that. Because you know what? Ultimately speaking, I've discovered, for some reason, I either don't know what's best for me, or know it and don't care anyway when I do those things that I probably shouldn't do. Again, that's probably just me. But there's no idea, there's no activity, there's no saying, there's no thought that doesn't produce something else. We live in this giant chain of rebirth, of cause and effect. Of everything we ever do, say, think, or hear becomes a cause to something else, which becomes a cause to something else, a la Thomas Troward. But it's true. That's how all things take place. So if we don't want to be caught up in a chain of events that's going to take us someplace ultimately that we'd rather not be, the only thing we can do is stop at some time and insert a new cause. And how do we do that? We can't do it alone. We've got to have some help. We've got to do it spiritually. We've got to say at some point, all right, I've discovered that I don't have the control I thought I had. Here, you take the wheel. Spirit, take the wheel. I'm getting in the shotgun seat. You're driving, because right now, it's important to me that we get where we're going. And I seem to have this, man, if I had a GPS system, you know, that showed the tracking thing, it would look like a serpent. It certainly wouldn't look like a straight line to wherever I wanted to be. And everybody has these lessons. Don't we all have these life lessons? You know, the rain falls on everybody, as they say, the just and the unjust. So it's not what happens, it's how we respond to them, it's what we make of them. It's when we have the wisdom to take an event and take from it what is going to be wheat and allow the chaff to just blow away. When we get to where we do that, we're living that spiritual life. We're living and advancing and growing our spirituality ever onward and ever upward. If we were writing about this, if this was a book, if this was a novel, not a Sunday talk, and not your life, if this was not our life, and we were writing about it, ask yourself, in my novel, would I be the victim or would I be the hero? If we don't learn to separate what's best for us spiritually from what is not, we're going to be the victim. When we do, we're going to be the hero. And come on, everybody wants to be a hero. Raise your hand if you don't want to be a hero. You don't see, yeah, I'm not. Sometimes I just throw it up there, you know, kind of modeling. That's not working this time, kids. I know that's where I want to be. That's where I want to go. And the way we do that is this. We have to live with spiritual authority. And we should. We are not side effects of life. We are life. And we are God incarnate in these bodies to express that life and to learn and live in community with others expressing that same life. And as those things, all I can say is, let's do this. And the better we get at removing what doesn't help and leaving behind the good, the better we're going to get at this whole thing called life. So with that, let's just take this into prayer, because I know this. I know that in the divine economy that nothing is wasted. Everything that comes to me or comes through me is done purposefully. It's done for my betterment. And as I get better and better at seeing the difference between the serviceable parts of life that flow through me and those that are just vessels, just vehicles bringing those lessons and those serviceable parts along, and then drifting off by themselves, no longer necessary to me, leaving behind just the fruit of what it is I need for an earthly existence in a divine spiritual manner. I know that life is good. I know that this puts me exactly where I am meant to be. That is, the divine flows me through me and uses me as an instrument of all those divine qualities. I know that God has become me, therefore light has become me. Strength has become me. Love has become me. Peace has become me. And if I don't let all those things get covered up by all that floating around in the atmosphere that doesn't serve, I will see my way clear to living that spiritual existence that I was put here to do. I know this is so. I know this is so for me. I know this is so for every other being. And I'm glad to say that we're all moving in that direction, ever expanding our spiritual awareness back toward that re-awareness of that unity with God. And knowing this is the case, is with grateful heart, I just say, thank you, life. Thank you for doing that for me. Thank you for doing that through me. And thank you for making me aware that that's going on. Thank you, thank you. I just release this word knowing it is the truth of who I am. And together we say, so it is.
Spirit all around me. I'm thankful, so grateful. I trust in God.
Ah, yes, and as the ushers come forward, let's just know that this is our opportunity to share our abundance. We know that all our good comes from one source, God. And for this, we are grateful. Just a quick word to those congregants who are not able to be here due to this COVID-19 thing, but who are watching this online. Thank you for your ongoing, continuous support. It's really appreciative. And you may please just join us in knowing that we just bless these gifts, these tithes, these offerings, knowing they're given from the central core of who we are, which is God made manifest on this plane. We send them forward with no strings and no conditions. So it is.
Every time it rains, hands of heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven? You'll find your fortune falling all over town. Be sure that your umbrella is upside down. Trade them for a package of sunshine flowers. If you want the things you love, you must have showers. So when you hear it thunder, don't run under the tree. There'll be pennies from heaven for you and me. Pennies from heaven. There's pennies from heaven. You'll find your fortune falling all the time. Be sure that your umbrella is going upside down. Trade them for
Wow, thank you, Tommy. How nice. You must have known I was going to tell that story about the days when there were no fences. That's about the same time frame, isn't it? That was kind of one of the popular songs back then. So, let's have all the practitioners come up forward. I mean, just a reminder to you at home that we can still be found online, by phone, or coming down here. The same way that you can bring your gifts, your tithes, your offerings, or the same way you can come down and collect us up for a prayer. So, knowing that's the case, let's just know this. There's something wonderful happening through me right now.
Something wonderful happening through me right now.
It is this thing called life.
It is this thing called life.
This thing called love.
This thing called love.
It's this thing called separating the good from the not so good.
This thing called separating the good from the not so good.
I live in my good.
I live in my good.
And I live for your good.
And I live for your good.
I'm happy for this.
I'm happy for this.
I accept it.
I accept it.
I am it.
I am it.
And I know it.
And I know it.
So thank you, God, in me.
Thanks for God.
Amen.